Hokage give me a face. Conan, Chapter 21-40. Chapter 21 _ I don't like Conan. Sanctions. Yizan looked at Police Officer Mew Mew. Who is the law really punishing? Yizan looked at the police officer Mew Mew and said slowly, also, haven't you always believed in the existence of fate? Yizan said slowly, okay, now I still have things on my side, please leave. No. Conan looked at Yizan and said, you must solve this matter. Conan's words made Yizan's eyes sharp. In an instant, Yizan's aura burst out, and the powerful aura made Conan slump to the ground, staring at Yizan in astonishment. Yizan then said slowly, don't think that you are the son of destiny and can act recklessly. Don't forget, I gave you everything you have. I can naturally take it away easily, what I must do, and you have nothing to do with it. Yizan's words were light and cloudy, but they carried an extremely dignified and cold aura, which made Conan almost unsteady. Officer Mew Mew looked at Yizan and said, if you really don't do this, I will keep bothering you in the next time. Yizan looked at the police officer Mumu, and a smile cracked at the corner of his mouth. That's good, I want to see, how long can you bother me? Believe me, before you bother me, your police skin will be pulled off. Yizan's voice carried playful smile. Okay, if it's okay, please leave. Yizan said slowly. Everyone looked at Yizan and finally had to leave. However, Shaolin waited until the end before looking at Yizan. Are you really not going? Yizan waved his hand. Don't worry, that group won't last long, didn't I tell you before? Not everyone is the son of destiny, that is to say, there is a limit to the fate line that some people can bear. And once that limit is exceeded, the consequences, boom. Quote. Yizan made an explosion and said to Shaolin, soon, that group will be separated and collapsed because of this matter. Yizan's words made Shaolin look at Yizan in surprise. I knew you would never watch things develop in a bad direction. Seeing Shaolin's surprised look, Yizan waved his hand and said, if you're okay, just leave. Yizan's words made Shaolin stunned and looked at Yizan. You hate me so much. Yizan yawned indifferently. It doesn't matter whether you hate it or not, it's just that you simply don't like Conan, and then hate Wu Jiwu. I don't like Conan. Shaolin was stunned for a moment, and then quickly reacted. Indeed, Conan, herself and others have indeed caused Yizan a lot of trouble these days, and Shaolin thought about it. These troubles seem to have a great relationship with her. After all, she brought Conan and others to find Yizan. Sorry. Shaolin looked at Yizan and said, it's all my fault. Yizan waved his hand. No more. Shaolin looked at Yizan's lack of interest, pondered for a while, lowered her head in frustration, bowed to Yizan, and then turned to leave. The moment Shaolin turned around, she made up her mind that she would keep a distance from Conan in the future. For some unknown reason, Shaolin also felt that Conan had done something wrong. The figure of number 18 appeared beside Yizan. I didn't expect that you could be so cruel to girls. Haven't you always been a kind person? Yizan raised his head slightly and glanced at number 18. Some things should be made clear to her. No. 18 glanced at Yizan strangely, just as he was about to say something. Yizan got up. In the killer group, haven't there been any missions these days? Appeared. Number 18 put a piece of paper in front of Yizan. This time the target is a writer. Writer. Yizan was a little stunned. There are really not many people who kill writers. After all, besides venting anger, killing people is more for money and power, especially Yizan's killing conditions are even harsher. In ultimate, so killing a writer who doesn't really do anything is really weird. Yes. Number 18 smiled strangely, and handed the paper to Yizan. And, the funniest thing is, it seems that the goal this time has something to do with us. Yizan's words on the 18th made Yizan a little confused, but when he put his eyes on the paper, Yizan saw a very strange pattern. The pattern was very similar, the other side flower. Ah! Yizan soon discovered that the target of this kill requires that this pattern be drawn on the body of the deceased before the kill can be killed. According to this, Did something happen to the marshals? Yizan's words made number 18 nodded. It is estimated that this is the case. Okay, tell him that we have taken over the mission, but what about the reward? Yizan looked at number 18 and said, our mission reward is a killer who voluntarily joins our killer group, one life for another. No, 18 nodded. Already, it's this person's family. That's it, that's good, continue the experiment of fate. Yizan said to number 18. Yes, number 18 responded quickly. Yizan, on the other hand, looked at the target of this kill. Oh, the writer, Jinju. Yizan nodded, his eyes slowly became a little dull, and soon, a mysterious line quickly appeared in Yizan's eyes. Find 5.3 here. Soon, Yizan saw the fate line of the writer a mistake. That's it. Yizan slowly left the room. Bah! The sound of huge fireworks made Yizan look up. Oh, I almost forgot, this is the first night of Matsuri in the world. As Yizan spoke, a figure suddenly came to Yizan's side. Yizan. A call made Yizan turn around. It's Shaolin, are you alone? Yizan asked with a smile, looking at Shaolin who appeared behind him. Shaolin nodded. I came here by myself, but my dad and Conan seem to have come too, but I don't know where they are. Chapter 22_ If it's all Yizan's actions. Yizan heard the words and said casually, oh, anyway, what they are like has nothing to do with me. Yizan said, and walked slowly towards the place where the writer a mistake was. Well, it's now. Yizan suddenly moved in his heart, and dropped a small glass bead in his hand. But Yizan didn't realize that his actions were seen by Conan who was chasing Shaolin behind him. Huh. Conan instantly looked at Yizan's actions in doubt. What is he doing? Conan looked at Yizan's actions strangely, and said so, in Conan's memory, Yizan was never the kind of careless person, nor was he a throwaway person. Discarding this marble definitely has a lot to do with it. Yizan's thoughts. Catch up. Conan's thoughts turned sharply, and he quickly decided his next move. Thinking of this, Conan quickly followed the marble. It didn't take long for Conan to be shocked to see something that he couldn't understand at all. This marble seems to be propelled by a strange force, and it quickly starts a series of operations. And Yizan seemed to have some perception, turned around, just saw the back of Conan leaving. Ah, Conan. Shaolin also looked at Yizan's eyes in surprise, saw Conan's figure in shock, and then quickly explained to Yizan. Yizan, listen to my explanation, he didn't come with me and I didn't know he was here. Yizan looked at Shaolin who was anxiously explaining to him, waved his hand and said, I see. After hearing Yizan's words, Shaolin breathed a sigh of relief. Yizan stretched his waist slightly and slowly said to Shaolin beside him, Shaolin, let's go, let's walk around with me. Yizan said slowly. And Shaolin nodded in surprise, okay. Following Yizan's words, Shaolin took Yizan to play here in surprise. At the same time, Conan followed the many influences brought by that marble and quickly came to the home of the writer a mistake. Then, Conan was surprised to see the death of the writer a mistake. The end, the writer a mistake died when he was stabbed in the upper jaw by the Kobo brush. Then, Conan saw a bloody yuhi at the scene of the death of the writer a mistake, blood and white flower. Blood and white flower. Conan looked at all this in disbelief, his eyes widened in disbelief, and his mind was spinning rapidly. Soon, Conan thought of a very terrifying thing. If this bloody white flower is really related to Yizan. Gudong. Conan swallowed in shock, almost unable to believe his guess. However, Conan felt more and more that this matter was what he had guessed. Damn, what's going on? Conan only felt more and more doubts in his heart. No, I must investigate what is going on in this matter. Conan said. Following Conan's words, Conan quickly left the place. Hello, Officer Mumu. Soon, the police officer Mumu came to the scene. However, after the investigation, Officer Mumu was dumbfounded. It all looks like an accidental death. Conan said to Officer Mumu, "Officer Mumu, come here," Conan said, and quickly came to the side with Officer Mumu. "Look at this," Conan said, and took out a lot of sundries, including marbles, steel pegs, plastic bags and empty bottles, and a series of sundries. Officer Mumu looked at Conan strangely. "Why are you showing me these things?" Conan said slowly, "These things are the culprits of this murder." "Wait, you just said, a murder case." Officer Mumu was very concerned about Conan's words. Conan nodded. "I have seen this case from the beginning to the end, but I still don't know how the murder was committed in the end." Conan's words made Officer Mumu stunned for a while. The current police officer Megumi also knows that Conan's identity is actually the former high school detective Kudo Shinichi, and he is absolutely convinced of Conan's reasoning ability, but even Conan can't deduce it. "First of all, this lesson of marbles," Conan said slowly. Following Conan's description, Officer Mumu soon knew what was going on in this murder case. That's it. However, after knowing the truth of the matter, Officer Mumu did not feel relieved. On the contrary, he felt even more sad because he was even more obsessed than Conan. "The only thing I know is that. Is this marble thrown away by Yizan?" Officer Mu 107 asked, looking at Conan. Conan nodded. "And, was it discarded that far?" Conan nodded again. Officer Mu was helpless, looked at the marbles in his hand, and then said to Conan, "What do you mean, continue to look for Yizan?" Conan lowered his head, thought for a while, and then slowly said, "No, after all, Yizan's words don't like our past. Even if we have passed, we still can't ask anything. I only think about one thing now." Quote. Conan looked at Officer Mumu and said slowly, "That's it, blood and white flour." Blood and white flour. Officer Mu suddenly remembered that, indeed, the most important reason why this case was classified as an accidental death so early was the blood and white flour. "Yes, I'm thinking about a question, that is this time the blood and white other side flour is a coincidence, or is the previous blood and white other side flour all Yizan's actions?" Conan said slowly. But Conan's words made Officer Mumu's eyes widen instantly. "Yes, if the previous blood and white flowers were all Yizan's actions." Chapter 23-Murdered Marshal. If the previous blood and white flowers were all Yizan's actions. That's really amazing. Officer Mu only felt that his whole body was not well. However, because both Conan and Officer Mumu focused their attention on the bloody white flower, neither Conan nor Officer Mumu saw the deceased, a strange figure similar to the flower of the other side. Ding dong. In the villa where Yizan was, the doorbell rang again. "Who is it?" After seeing Conan and Officer Mumu outside the door, Yizan turned his head and left without saying a word. "There is no one in the room, please don't knock on the door." Yizan's attitude was very clear, but the two of them still had no choice, so they pushed in cheekily. Yizan looked at the two who looked at him with a shy face and smiled, and shook his head helplessly. "Who let you in?" "Don't be so cold," Officer Mumu said with a smile. "It's definitely not a good thing for you to come to me, why can't I be so indifferent?" Yizan stood at the door, with no intention of letting the two come in and sit. "Well, we're here to..." Officer Mu was halfway through his words, but was suddenly interrupted by Yizan. "I know what you are here for. Then, please leave," Yi Xuanfang said calmly. "Did you do that thing?" Conan asked firmly, looking at Yizan. When Yizan heard the words, he stopped, and after a while, he said to Conan, "What about what I did?" "What about not what I did?" "It was you who did it. Then I will try my best to seize the evidence of your crime and let you fall for the law. If you didn't do it, we will leave." Conan's face was firm. Conan's words made Yizan pursed his lips, a little disdainful and a little funny. He looked at Conan silently, and after a while of silence, he said, "I didn't do it, get out." Yizan said something, and after that, a strange force made Conan and Officer Mumu leave the mansion directly. Boom. Conan and Officer Mumu watched the door of the mansion in front of them closed, and clenched their fists tightly. Officer Mumu, Go to the murder scene. I must find evidence and bring him to justice. Conan said very seriously. Okay. Officer Mumu nodded seriously, and took Conan to the scene of the murder again. But this time. Officer Mumu, come and see. Conan finally saw the strange pattern on the corpse that resembled the other side of the flower. Officer Mumu quickly came to Conan's side, and naturally saw the pattern of the other side flower on the corpse. This time, Conan and Officer Mumu didn't know whether their guess was right or not. Originally, the two of them could say with certainty that this was made by Yizan, but now, the pattern of this other sure flower lets them know that it is very likely that the marshal is a criminal. However, the two had nothing to do with the marshal, because now the marshal had become a rich man and a high-ranking official. Damn, both Conan and Officer Mumu felt the difficulty of the matter. After the two looked at each other, they finally chose to find the marshal. And when Conan and Officer Mumu went to look for the marshal, Yizan saw the news for himself on the 18th. Well, someone is going to kill that marshal, Yizan asked strangely. No, 18 nodded. How is it? Do you want to stop it? Yizan shook his head. Why stop it? Anyway, our goal has been achieved now, and many secret circles have now known about this matter. Next, whether the marshal died or not has nothing to do with us. We just need to watch the shifts and movements of fate. Quote. Yizan said slowly. No, 18 nodded to show that he understood. By the way, I need to let Conan know about these things. They are really annoying. Find them a case and let them solve it. In short, try not to let them idle. Yizan yawned greatly. Okay. On the other hand, the Maori Detective Agency gets a new case. What? Are you Shinyi's girlfriend? Both Maorilin and Maori Kogoro looked at the woman in front of them in surprise. Woman nodded and said, please help. Shaolin put her eyes on Conan. Now Shaolin already knows that Conan is Kudo Shinichi. Quantum. Conan pondered, but in the end he didn't have much impression of the woman in front of him. However, there is a case, and Conan is still ready to see it. It didn't take long for everyone to know what had happened. Quantum was asked to take care of Hokage Sho, the younger brother of the famous football player Hokage Hero, but Xiao Sho was kidnapped. Due to the pressure of the kidnappers, Quantum did not dare to alert the police. Under Conan's reasoning, it didn't take long for Conan to know where the kidnapped Xiao Sho was. Just as Conan was about to search. Ding ling ling. Hello. Conan took his mobile phone. The call was Officer Mumu. However, as soon as Officer Mumu opened his mouth, Conan was taken aback. Conan, something happened, the marshal died. Officer Mu's words made Conan stand up instantly. What did you say? He died. What's the reason? Murder. Murder. Conan was even more dumbfounded. Whether it was an accidental death or suicide, Conan wouldn't be surprised, but murder. I'm going over here. Conan looked at Mori Kogoro, and after quickly explaining his reasoning, he left quickly without waiting for everyone to react. Hey wait. The sound of everyone's calls had no effect, and Conan had quickly left the place in a taxi. Soon, Conan came to the place where the marshals were murdered. Now the marshal's status is very good, not only a high-ranking official, but also a wealthy businessman, so the place to live is very good. Chapter 24-Beauty invites to Moon Shadow Island. But it's such a nice place, but it's incredibly messy, full of violence, things are damaged, and bullet holes are everywhere. And the marshal was swept across the waist by the bullet, and his body was almost broken in two. And, most importantly, the marshal. What's the matter? Conan's eyes widened in surprise. The body of the marshal is lying on a strange pattern, which is very similar to the other side flower. Could it be, that thing was really known by others? Conan's words made Officer Mumu nod his head with a serious face. So, things are probably going to be troublesome. I have been monitoring this marshal. Why does this happen? How could anyone know about it? Conan took a deep breath and said, the most important thing right now is not this, But, we need to find out who knows that thing can't be spread out at will. Officer Mew Mew also nodded, indicating that he knew. The dialogue between the two of them made a puzzled policeman ask, "What are you talking about?" "Fate," Conan said casually, and said to Officer Mumu, "I'll look around to see if there are any clues." Officer Mumu nodded, and Conan quickly moved to the side. On the other hand, Yizan looked at Shaolin and Suzuki Sonoko in front of him, a little confused. "Who are you?" Yizan was wondering when Suzuki Sonoko suddenly approached Yizan with a smile on his face. "Hello, my name is Suzuki Sonoko." "Well, I know." Yizan nodded, looking at Suzuki Sonoko's splendid expression. He really couldn't understand what was going on. "Xiao Ran, you are so mean, you didn't tell me about such a handsome boyfriend." Suzuki Yuanzi came to Xiaolan. "Are you afraid that I will take your boyfriend away?" Xiaolin waved her hands in a hurry, trying to defend herself, but in the end she didn't say anything. Yuanzi was just talking casually, but this time, he suddenly felt that something was wrong, and looked at Mao Lilan with a strange expression. "Xiaolin, don't say you really like him, right?" "What did you say?" Xiaolin shy Yuhi on her cheeks and glared at Yuanzi angrily. Looking at the bizarre conversation between the two, Yizan felt more and more speechless. "Hey, I said you too, what are you going to do?" Suzuki Sonoko suddenly came to Yizan and said, "I heard Shaolin say, you are very powerful." Yizan looked at Suzuki Sonoko and said strangely, "Very powerful? In what way?" "In which way?" Suzuki Sonoko suddenly came up to Yizan. "Are you very good in many aspects?" Yizan yawned loudly. "You can think so." Yizan's words made Suzuki Yuanzi pursed his lips, looked at Shaolin and said, "Shaolin, is he too arrogant?" Just when Yuanzi complained, number 18 suddenly came to Yizan. "You have to take a look at this first." Speaking on the 18th, he handed the paper in his hand to Yizan. Yizan looked at it, nodded, and smashed the paper in his hand at will, and then looked at Shaolin and Suzuki Yuanzi and said, "You two come here. Is it because of this?" "Ah, no, no, no." Xiaolan waved her hand hastily and said to Yizan, "We came here to invite you to play on a small island together." "Island?" Yizan looked at Shaolin and said slowly, "What islet?" "Moon Shadow Island." Suzuki Sonoko snorted softly, raising his chin a little unhappily. "It's really boring. I knew you were such a person, so I wouldn't invite you." "Sonoko." Shaolin looked at Suzuki Sonoko reproachfully. Suzuki Sonoko waved his hand. "Hi, I got it, got it." The words of the two made Yizan frown slightly, not because Suzuki Sonoko didn't like him and made Yizan a little disgusted, but because of where the two were going. "Yueying Island. You'd better not go there, it is not a good place," Yizan said slowly. In Yizan's perception, there was something wrong with the fate line in that place, and there didn't seem to be any good people in it. Yizan's words made Shaolin look at Yizan with a little stunned. "But, we have already." Shaolin was halfway through when she was suddenly interrupted by Suzuki Sonoko and yelled at Yizan, "Why don't you go?" "Who are you? If you don't want to go, I won't go." "I'll go." Suzuki Sonoko's words made Yizan shake his head slightly and said to Shaolin, "What? Are you going too?" Shaolin looked at Yizan and said, "Don't do this. Yuanzi didn't mean that. Are you really not going?" "Let's go together." Yizan glanced at Shaolin, and finally sighed slightly and said, "It's fine, I'll just take a trip." Yizan's words made number 18 look at Yizan in surprise. "Are you really going out?" Yizan nodded. "Pay more attention to the police." "Yes." Suzuki Sonoko suddenly approached Yizan and number 18, "Police. Are you bad people? Otherwise, why should you pay attention to the police?" Yizan ignored Suzuki Sonoko's words and turned to Shaolin. "When are you going?" "Tomorrow morning," Shaolin said, and without waiting for Suzuki Sonoko to say anything to Yizan, she quickly left with Suzuki Sonoko. On the spot, number 18 looked at Yizan. "Do you really want to go to that Moon Shadow Island? The fate line on your body is a little messy now. If you go to that kind of place, it will cause a big incident. Yizan shrugged casually. That's how it's fun, isn't it? The more entangled fate is, the more my understanding will be improved after I unravel my fate. Hearing the words on the 18th, he could only helplessly nodded. Well then, I will be on standby around. As long as there is something beyond your expectations, just tell me directly. Yizan waved his hand. Understood. Don't worry, there won't be too many problems, this world is just a brain. Chapter 25-Garden is crazy. Seeing this on the 18th, he shook his head helplessly. You always see beautiful women who can't walk, and then see Morilin and Suzuki Sonoko. No. 18 feet's words made Yizan's mouth twitch with a smile. Yes. Humph. Number 18 snorted lightly, his eyes turned strangely, looked at Yizan, and a smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. Really? Husband, my dear husband, you really liked Maolilan. With Suzuki Sonoko. Although Yizan didn't know what was going on with the strange performance on the 18th, it didn't prevent Yizan's answer. Yeah, what's wrong? Jealous. No. 18 was tired of Yizan's arms, and the perfect body made Yizan's deep desire instantly hooked up. What a goblin. Yizan looked at number 18 and pounced on it. However, the next development made Yizan's eyes widen instantly, only to see that number 18 had turned himself into Shaolin at some point. Hee, how's it going? Number 18 looked at Yizan with a smile, but both voice and appearance were very similar to Shaolan. That similarity makes Yizan a little confused. However, although he was confused, Yizan's eyes lit up, and the flames in his heart suddenly rose. Little leprechaun, asking for hardship. The next day, early in the morning, with number 18, was ignorant when he heard the doorbell ringing constantly. Yizan got up in surprise, looked at number 18 who was sleeping soundly. A little strange. Who is it? So early, why don't people sleep well? Yizan said, put on a piece of clothes and opened the door just like that. Just opened the door. Wow. Two screams made Yizan look towards the door, but he saw two girls with slightly yui cheeks looking at him pretty. It was Shaolin and Suzuki Sonoko. Suzuki Sonoko fixedly looked at Yizan's muscles that were exposed because he was wearing a piece of clothing. His broad and powerful body was full of man's breath. Not only that, Yizan's body was not as full of tangle as ordinary muscular men. Instead, it presents a perfect combination of strength and beauty, and the streamlined muscles contain terrifying power. So handsome, Suzuki Sonoko said blankly, and after seeing Yizan's handsome face, his face became even more yui. Run. However, when Suzuki Sonoko saw the faint wicked smile at the corner of Yizan's mouth, he was shocked. He suddenly reacted, stood up immediately, looked at Yizan with a look of disdain, and said, it's really lazy to stay up so late. Home. Suzuki Sonoko's words made Yizan yawn greatly. You guys are too early, come in. Yizan said, and took Shaolin and Suzuki Sonoko into the living room. Sit down for a while, and I'll wash your face. Yizan said vaguely to Shaolin and Suzuki Sonoko. Suzuki Sonoko and Shaolin nodded quickly. Go ahead. Suzuki Yuanzi watched Yizan leave, and quickly said to Shaolin, Shaolin, did you see it? Did you see it? Shaolin looked at Suzuki Sonoko suspiciously, and said strangely, what did you see? See his figure. Suzuki Sonoko looked at Shaolin and said, I didn't expect him to look thin and frail, but I didn't expect his figure to be so good. Suzuki Sonoko's eyes twinkled with starlight, and the corner of his mouth evoked a silly smile. Really handsome. Shaolin flipped over a Byakugan and looked at Suzuki Sonoko, who was in full bloom. She could only shake her head helplessly, and finally she could only say, don't you like him? Say he is arrogant. Suzuki Sonoko nodded. Of course, but it is undeniable that his figure is really good. Suzuki Sonoko's words made Shaolin a little helpless, and finally he could only sigh and say, okay, I guess Yizan is coming soon. Suzuki Sonoko stood up suddenly, and there was nothing wrong with his serious expression. Suzuki Sonoko sat at one end, Yizan had washed his face, and came to the living room lazily. Okay, let's go to Yueying Island. The port is very far from here, take my car and go. Yizan said, and brought the two girls to the garage. Wow! As soon as he entered the basement, Suzuki Sonoko's eyes widened, so many luxury cars. Suzuki Sonoko was surprised to see that the entire basement was full of luxury cars. Just pulling out one of these luxury cars was enough to cover the cost of an average family's life. Gudong, Suzuki Yuanzi looked at Yi Xuandao. You wouldn't be in a business like drug trafficking, would you? Otherwise, how could you get so much money? Suzuki Sonoko's words made Yizan burst into laughter. You don't think drug trafficking is so profitable, do you? It's really a child's idea. Yizan shook his head slowly, and said to Xiaolan, which one is the one we fancy, we will take it. Yizan's words surprised Xiaolan. Let me choose. Yizan nodded, but Suzuki Sonoko didn't care about arguing with Yizan, and quickly came to Xiaolan's side, and began to choose his favorite car. After a while, Yizan looked at the car chosen by the two women and covered his forehead helplessly. Well, since you picked a two-seater sports car, do you two have driver's licenses? Yes. Suzuki Sonoko nodded hurriedly, and quickly said to Yizan, of course there is. Yizan said, then you two are okay, I'm getting a car. Don't, how embarrassed you are. Xiaolan looked at Yizan embarrassedly. And Yizan waved his hand. It's alright, it's not a big deal, as you can see, there are a lot of cars on my side, and I'm not very interested in them, many cars have a lot of dust. While Yizan was talking, Xiaolan was pushed by Suzuki Sonoko and pushed Xiaolan directly into Yizan's arms. You two are good together, I'll try the feeling of other luxury cars. Suzuki Sonoko's actions made Xiaolan make a big yuhi face and looked at Suzuki Sonoko angrily. Suzuki Sonoko smiled badly and got into a car next to him. Chapter 26_Go to Moon Shadow Island. Because Xiaolan couldn't drive, Yizan took the driver's seat. Yuanzi drove another luxury car to follow Yizan, and the three quickly drove to the port and boarded the ship bound for Moon Shadow Island. Are you familiar with Moon Shadow Island? On the boat, Xiaolan looked at Yizan. Yizan shook his head. I just know, as for the specific situation, I'm not very familiar with it. Yizan's words made Xiaolan's eyes flash with a look of surprise, and said to Yizan, then let me tell you the rumors about Moon Shadow Island. Yizan nodded. Okay. With Yizan's nodding, Xiaolan's mouth slightly evoked a smile. Tell you, there is a very famous legend in Moon Shadow Island. It was a full moon night 12 years ago. It is said that a very famous pianist in Moon Shadow Island returned home on this day. Yizan nodded lightly, indicating that he was listening, but when Xiaolan saw this, she worked even harder. He was born on this island. After many years, he returned to Yueying Island again and held a piano concert in the village's public hall. Unfortunately, after the concert, he and his family suddenly locked themselves in the room, and also set fire. It is said that he killed his wife and daughter with a knife, in the raging flames, as if entangled by something, constantly playing the piano, and the tune is Beethoven's Piano Sonata, Moonlight. Xiaolan said in a very terrifying language. However, Yizan, who had known all this for a long time, just pretended to widen his eyes. Oh, it sounds pretty good, but in fact, it is just like that, there are too many ways to easily achieve that effect. Yizan's words made Xiaolan look at Yizan with some blame. Can't you show some surprise? I'm surprised. Yizan looked at Xiaolan and said, look at my eyes, look at my mouth. Xiaolan looked helplessly at Yizan's fake expression, and said speechlessly, all right, I won't talk anymore. Yizan glanced at Xiaolan, who was a little sullen, and a smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. Since you told me a legend, then I will also tell you something about Yueying Island. Yizan's words made Xiaolan look at Yizan in surprise. Really? Yizan said slowly, do you know how Moon Shadow Island was formed? Yizan's words made Xiaolan shake her head slightly. Yizan said slowly. According to the rumors, Moon Shadow Island is because a god is about to be born in that place, but the gods who know about this matter do not want this god to be born for their own rights and interests. Before this god was born, they joined forces to kill this god abruptly, and the fallen god's resentment shot into the sky, knocking a piece of the moon off the mortal world, so it was named Moon Shadow Island. Yizan's words made Xiaolin quickly widen her eyes. Is this true? Yizan did not answer Xiaolin's words, but said slowly, because of this god's resentment, many incredible things will happen on Moon Shadow Island, such as death, such as ghosts. Yizan's words made Xiaolin look around in fear and asked again cautiously, is this true? Ha ha ha, of course it's fake. Yizan laughed and looked at Xiaolin and said, idiot, how could this be true? Xiaolin breathed a sigh of relief, and then complained to Yizan. And Yizan just smiled, and his mind was constantly thinking about the next thing. Uzumaki everywhere. I hope Conan doesn't come here. If he comes, it will be even more troublesome. Yizan thought silently. Conan itself is the center of this world. If he is here, the trajectory of fate will be even more chaotic. However, I don't know if it's God's will. After Conan finally investigated the murderer, he also locked his sight on Moon Shadow Island. Uncle Mori. Conan looked at Kogoro Mori with a cute look. Let's go to Moon Shadow Island to play. Mori Kogoro himself is not ready to agree to Conan's request. But I don't know why. An invitation letter was sent to Kogoro Mori. The destination of the invitation letter was not elsewhere. It was Yizan and the others that were about to go, Moon Shadow Island. Okay. Mori Kogoro thought about it for a while, then nodded and said, anyway, Xiaolin also went to Moon Shadow Island, so let's go too. What? Xiaolin went too? Why didn't I know? Conan looked at Kogoro Mori in shock, his tone a little sharp. Mori Kogoro nodded. Yes. Not only Xiaolin, Yuanzi and Yizan have passed by. Mori Kogoro's words made Conan and Officer Mumu look at each other, and they all saw the look in each other's eyes. It must be him. Conan and Officer Mumu said in unison. He. Who is he? Maoli 5.9 Kogoro looked at Conan and Officer Mumu suspiciously. Yizan. The two said to Mori Kogoro, then looked at each other and said, come on, go to Moon Shadow Island. Hey, wait for me. Conan and the others headed towards Yueying Island, where Yizan had already taken Xiaolin and Yuanzi around for a long time. Just as the three were about to leave. Ah! With a terrified scream, Yizan sighed slightly in his heart, as expected. Something happened. Yizan thought about it, glanced at Xiaolin and Suzuki Sonoko who were a little scared and said, how is it? Would you like to go take a look? Go. Chapter 27-Moonlight Sonata. Although Xiaolin and Suzuki Sonoko were extremely frightened, they finally said they wanted to take a look. Yizan also yawned greatly, and followed the two women. Soon, everyone came to the center of this chaos. Everyone is surrounded by layers and layers, and it is impossible to clearly see what is going on inside the crowd. However, even though they were separated by layers of people, Yizan and the others could clearly hear the piano sonata from inside, Moonlight. It's the moonlight. Xiaolin came directly to Yizan and looked at Yizan in fear, as the ghost coming. Yizan looked at Xiaolin's scared look, and a strange smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. Of course. Ah. Of course not. Yizan smiled and looked at Xiaolin's terrified eyes and said slowly, as I said before, there are no ghosts in this world. Even if there are ghosts, I made them. Yizan thought silently. His words finally made Xiaolin relax. Xiaolin followed Yizan and squeezed to the side of the crowd, looking curiously at the place surrounded by everyone. Let. The familiar voice caused Yizan and the three to look sideways. Following the voice, there were several familiar figures coming towards them. Conan. Officer Mumu. Xiaolin and Sonoko looked at the few people who wanted to enter in amazement, their faces filled with disbelief. And Yizan's heart was even more helpless. He was really afraid of what to do. And Suzuki Sonoko was swiftly heading towards where Conan was. "Let's go and see what happened," Suzuki Sonoko said with great interest. In the words of Suzuki Sonoko, Yizan could only go to Conan's location temporarily. "As soon as I entered it, I saw a scene of death. It's another murder case." Yizan shook his head slightly and said with emotion. With Yizan's emotion, Conan and Officer Miu Miu turned their heads at the same time and looked at Yizan. "Is that you? Yizan, did you do this?" Conan roared directly at Yizan. "Tisk tisk." Yizan quickly shook his head. "Why do you still want to be a detective? I don't think you need to do it. Just go back to breastfeeding, little brat." Yizan said casually, and in Conan's angry eyes, he came to the deceased's side. Facing Conan, he said, "You don't have to be unconvinced, you little brat, your brain isn't fully developed yet. It's interesting to go to school if you don't go home yet. Let's see what the real case is." Yizan said, having circled the deceased for a week, and soon found the music score under the chair. After taking a quick note, he asked the suspect on the side, "What is the identity of the deceased?" "The property owner Kawashima," Officer Miu Miu said halfway through, and Yizan had already played a few times on the piano in front of the deceased. "What are you doing? The scene of the murder case can't be disturbed, you know," Officer Miu Miu yelled at Yizan. Yizan glanced at Officer Miu Miu, then glanced at the room, pulled out a tape, was silent for a while, and said to Officer Miu Miu, "Okay, I basically know who the murderer is. Really, it's that simple. I've been here for so long, and I'll help you solve it, so you don't wrong people. I really don't know how you can think that I'm the murderer." Yizan's words made everyone look at Yizan in surprise. Shaolin looked at Yizan suspiciously. "Do you really know who the murderer is?" Yizan nodded. "It's not difficult at all. It's normal to know." Conan looked at Yizan suspiciously. "Impossible, how could you know about this murder so quickly? What the hell is going on?" Yizan glanced at Conan. "Don't use your stupidity to speculate on the wisdom of others." Yizan spoke slowly, glanced around, and finally brought up a smile. "However, this murder, I don't know why, after I know the truth, I don't want to tell the truth. Some people indeed it should be sanctioned." Yizan's words made everyone look at Yizan in surprise. "What the hell are you talking about?" Suzuki Sonoko looked at Yizan and said, "This is a murder case, even if there is a big reason, it shouldn't kill anyone." Suzuki Yuanzi's words made Yizan glance at Suzuki Yuanzi, and then said to Shaolin, "Shaolin, do you think so too?" This. Mao Lilan said nothing. Compared with Suzuki Sonoko, Mao Lilan is not so repulsive about killing people. Through contact with Yizan, Mao Lilan deeply understands one thing, that is, to kill bad people is to save good people, and for some purposes, killing people. Some people are also understandable. "Even if you don't tell me, I will investigate the last murderer." 330. Conan yelled at Yizan. Yizan waved his hand casually. "It's up to you, you can't even investigate it, and you are also a detective. You know, this murderer deliberately left you clues, and if you can't investigate it like this, you still do what detective?" Yizan's words made Conan and Officer Miu Miu look around in surprise, widening their eyes in disbelief. "Is there a murderer who deliberately left clues?" Suzuki Sonoko also looked at Yizan in surprise. Yizan looked at Suzuki Sonoko and said casually, "Why is it impossible? Some people like to treat their crimes as art to be observed by others, while there are other people who are pure fools, such as this time, the murderer. The reason for deliberately leaving clues is that this murderer is very contradictory. Since he wants to kill, he also wants someone to stop him, so in the end, this situation came into being." Yizan's words made everyone look at Yizan in surprise. They really couldn't believe what Yizan said. However, Yizan's words, if you think about it carefully, are not unbelievable. "What the hell is going on?" Suzuki Sonoko looked at everyone in distress. For the first time, Suzuki Sonoko felt that his IQ was really in arrears. Chapter 28 _ Know Everything. What the hell is going on? Suzuki Sonoko looked at everyone in distress. For the first time, Suzuki Sonoko felt that his IQ was really in arrears. Yizan yawned, gestured to Conan casually, and said to everyone, "Go ask Conan, let him investigate slowly, and then tell you." Following Yizan's question, everyone turned their attention to Conan. Yizan, on the other hand, was lying on the sofa casually, watching everyone around Conan asking questions. "It's really comfortable." Yizan looked at Conan's exhausted appearance, and a slight smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. Conan has been annoying himself all the time, and now it is finally his turn to take revenge. Yizan looked at Conan's chaotic appearance with a little wickedness, and a wicked smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. In Yizan's smirk, a woman came to Yizan's side. "Do you really know who the murderer is?" Yizan glanced at the woman in front of him and said slowly, "Of course, isn't it Mr. Murderer?" The woman looked at Yizan in horror. "Do you really know?" Then, the woman didn't wait for Yizan to answer. She was stunned again. "By the way, you just said sir." Yizan nodded. "Yeah, aren't you a man disguised as a woman? It is estimated that only those who are blind can't see such an obvious thing." Following Yizan's words, the woman looked at Yizan blankly, unable to believe her ears. "Who are you? You know so clearly," the woman said dully. Yizan waved his hand. "Everything has its flaws. As long as you act, there will be flaws, plus your soft heart, the flaws you left on purpose, and so on. It is estimated that there are only they don't know the truth." Yizan pointed at Conan and others casually, and said slowly. The woman widened her eyes dumbfounded and looked at Yizan, an extraordinary person, in disbelief. Well, Yizan acted decisively this time. In fact, Yizan absolutely does not have such a strong reasoning ability. What Yizan used was his familiarity with the plot of Conan, coupled with his superb mental strength and observation to draw conclusions. However, no matter what, the conclusion can be forced. Well, I should wear a pair of eyes in the future. At this time, I should hold my glasses and pretend to say, "The wisdom of mortals." That feeling is simply perfect. Yizan thought slowly. Woman, in front of Yizan looked at Yizan and said, "Then why don't you tell the police?" Yizan waved his hand casually. "Didn't I say it? Those people are more than worthy of death. They are drug dealers themselves. In addition to killing people, it is just right to die and contribute to society." Yizan's words made the woman's eyes widen dumbfounded. He has never met someone like Yizan who approves of killing. Okay, hurry up and leave, my companion has already come." Yizan pointed behind the woman. Shaolin and Suzuki Sonoko were coming towards Yizan. Seeing this, the woman bowed slightly, then walked away. "Who is she?" Shaolin came to Yizan and asked the woman, who was leaving. "Murderer," Yizan said casually to Shaolin. "Okay, the matter is basically over here, shall we leave first?" Yizan didn't want to stay in Moon Shadow Island. After all, the fate line here is too messy. After staying here for a long time, some problems will really arise. "No," Suzuki Sonoko said to Yizan. "I finally saw the police handling a case. I want to take a good look." Suzuki Sonoko's words made Shaolin also nodded and looked at Yi Xuandao. "That's right, stay here, I want to see it too." The words of the two women made Yizan sigh slightly, but he didn't say anything more. Thinking about it, the two women have always been in the relatively peaceful world of Conan, and there is really no sense of danger. Yizan said to the two of them that the fate line was messy. It would be better to say that there is a lot on this Moon Shadow Island. Murderers with guns are more deterrent. But although there are some dangers, Yizan really doesn't see it very much. Even if the fate line is extremely complicated, Yizan is confident that he will live a good life in this complex fate line. Time passed slowly. When Yizan and Shaolin and Suzuki Sonoko arbitrarily argue with each other, Conan finally found some clues. However, troublesome things also appeared at this time. Another murder happened. With Yizan's hint, the murderer was much more careful this time than before, but after all, he was a novice murderer, and he still left some clues, and these clues were discovered by Conan not long after. Knew everything about Akatsuki, fell silent. Conan finally knew why Yizan said that before. I didn't expect. Conan came to Officer Mumu and told Officer Mumu everything, and Officer Mumu was also a little embarrassed. Although it is a pity, the murderer must be arrested and brought to justice. Officer Mumu said. So, your police officers are just not likable, so many bad guys don't care about these prawns. Yizan sneered on the side. Officer Conan and Miu Miu glared at Yizan, but they couldn't refute it. After all, what Yizan said was so suitable in the current situation, so suitable that he and others could not refute it. Yizan looked at the two who could not refute, and said with some emotion, if I want to talk about this matter, forget it. Yizan's words made Conan and Officer Mumu shake their heads at the same time. No way. Seeing this, Yizan frowned slightly, it's still so unlikable. Following Yizan's words, a melodious sound of the piano came. Ah! Yizan sighed with emotion, then looked at Shaolin and Suzuki Sonoko and said, is it okay now? Let's go, I advise you not to watch the ending. Chapter 29-Moonshadow Island ends. A melodious sound of the piano came. Ah! After Yizan sighed with vicissitudes of life, he looked at Shaolin and Suzuki Sonoko and said, it's all right now, right? Let's go, I advise you not to look at the ending. Yizan's words made both women puzzled. Why, I finally got here, I want to know the ending before leaving. Yizan looked at the two women and shrugged. All right, let's take a look here, it's also a way to give the person who walks the path for heaven. Yizan's words made Shaolin and Suzuki Sonoko a little stunned. They couldn't believe that Yizan was so good at talking this time. Let's go, Yizan said to Shaolin and Suzuki Sonoko. Go to that place and have a look, so you can know what the final outcome is like. As everyone moved forward, a burning house came into view. Don't! Conan exclaimed directly, ignoring everyone's obstruction, and quickly entered the raging fire. Yizan just watched Conan enter the room. Soon. Boom. Soon, with a banging sound, Conan was thrown out the window. No! Conan shouted and wanted to rush into the room again, but was stopped by the police officer Mumu. How is it? How do you feel now? Yizan said slowly. Yizan's words made Conan and Officer Mumu stop talking. And Shaolin and Suzuki Sonoko, who knew the truth, were also depressed. To be honest, Conan and Officer Mumu really regret it. This time the investigation really made both of them feel a little uncomfortable. Okay, since the matter is settled like this, can we go? Yizan said again, looking at Shaolin and Suzuki Sonoko. This time, Shaolin and Suzuki Sonoko finally nodded and stopped talking. Yizan had been letting them both leave the place before, but he had been grumbling to see how things were going, and finally he let himself change. Feeling so down, Yizan left with Shaolin and Suzuki Sonoko. Conan, on the other hand, followed Yizan closely. I always feel that you have a share in the matter of Moonshadow Island. Conan's words made Yizan glance at Conan, and finally shook his head helplessly. This time, you guessed wrong, this time, I have no intention of shooting. After Yizan said something casually, he left in front of Conan. Don't worry, I will definitely investigate your criminal evidence and bring you to justice. Conan looked at Yizan angrily and said so. Yizan yawned loudly. It's up to you, I've been at my place anyway, waiting for you, but, if it's alright, it's best not to disturb me, otherwise, once I get angry, I'll do something. Don't blame me if something unexpected happens. Yizan's words made Conan look at Yizan even more angrily, but in the end he had no choice but to let Yizan leave with his beloved Shaolin. Yizan returned with Shaolin and Suzuki Sonoko, who were in a depressed mood. You say, why are there such sad things in this world? Shaolin asked innocently. But think about it, Shaolin looks like an adult, but in fact, just like Conan in the original book, she is just a high school student, and without the blessing of the pig's foot halo, Shaolin is already very good. Life is like this. There are always some sad things in this world, but there are also many beautiful things. Yizan said while looking at Shaolan. And Shaolin nodded knowingly. That's it. Shaolin seemed to understand but was unraveled by Yizan. But on the other hand, Sonoko Suzuki drove the car with a sad expression on his face. Ah. Suzuki Sonoko sighed slightly. Under such circumstances, the three returned to Yizan's residence. I'm going back. As soon as he returned to Yizan's residence, Suzuki Yuanzi whispered to Yizan and left Yizan's residence directly. Yizan looked at Suzuki Sonoko who was leaving, while Shaolan quickly said to Yizan, I'll follow along and have a look. Yizan nodded and said to Shaolin, okay, go and have a look. I'm leaving, Shaolin said, leaving quickly, heading towards Suzuki Garden. Not long after the two women left, they came to Yizan's side on the 18th. What's wrong? Is there any problem? Yizan nodded. The fate line of Moonshadow Island gradually became clear at the end, but it seems that there are some problems on Suzuki Sonoko's side. Yizan's words made number 18 glance at Yizan strangely. Suzuki Sonoko. Yizan nodded. No, 18 looked at Yizan strangely. Isn't she without any special features? How can she attract the fate line? Yizan shook his head. I'm not very clear about this matter, but what is certain is that there are some interesting phenomena in her. Yizan's words made number 18 ask in surprise. Then do you want me to monitor her situation? No need, let it develop. Whether it's good or bad, it's better than it was before. Yizan's words made number 18 nodded. In the flow of fate, mediocrity is the saddest, but often a large part of the people are mediocre, and there are only a few outstanding people. Damn, why is there no clue from Yizan's side? After Yizan and others left, Conan almost felt that he was going crazy. Conan kept looking for evidence of Yizan's crime, but until now, Conan still has nothing to gain. Yizan is like a very ordinary rich man, living a leisurely rich life all day long. However, Conan knew that this was definitely not normal and definitely not ordinary. Because Conan found that he couldn't even investigate the source of Yizan's money at all. Yizan's money seemed to be black money, and appeared out of thin air in Yizan's hands, but the even weirder thing was that this kind of black money can be spent at will. No one found anything wrong with it. Chapter 30-Kidnapping. This kind of weirdness makes Conan very sure that Yizan must be committing a crime, and the crime he committed is not an ordinary crime, but a monstrous crime. After all, what he did to become a rich man of Yizan's level, is definitely not small. The most important thing is the way of money laundering, which makes Conan also tremble. This mysterious money laundering without any clue is definitely not something ordinary people or ordinary forces can do. I'm absolutely going to put you in jail, Conan said. However, Conan didn't know that his actions and thoughts did not attract any attention from Yizan. Also, Conan didn't know that his behavior was completely wrong, and he was wrong to ultimate. The most important reason why Yizan's money could not be found out was because the source of Yizan's money was too mysterious and powerful. It was given to him on the 18th. Yizan's. As an artificial human, it is too simple to cover up the traces in the online world. Moreover, the power of number 18 is also extremely powerful. It is very simple to just hide the traces of transfers. As for money laundering, it is not necessary to do much. Said, Yizan's money is not black money in the first place. How come the theory of black money laundering? So, Conan's actions took the wrong direction from the very beginning. Yizan didn't know these things, and Yizan was now thinking about how to block Conan next. Since the previous pit Conan on Moonshadow Island, Yizan suddenly found that the trait of pit man he had been hiding had awakened. Really, I haven't cheated for a long time. This time, I still feel refreshed. Well, it's decided. Isn't Conan able to solve all kinds of problems all the time? I'll get him a few. Let him solve the brain-burning case slowly, Yizan said with a smile on the corner of his mouth. Each case in the world of Conan is nothing more than the combined application of various silk tapes and so on. Well, it's such a happy decision, ha ha ha. Yizan slowly raised the corner of his mouth. Conan didn't know how miserable he was in the future. Because most of the cases created by Yizan are unsolvable, and all kinds of unsolved cases, only Conan can reluctantly solve them sometimes. Go find Conan. This made Conan's IQ somewhat insufficient, and he was suspicious all day long at a young age. However, Conan now does not know how miserable his future life is. Now Conan just wants to quickly investigate Yizan's criminal evidence. Time passed, and a week passed in a blink of an eye. On this day, both Conan and Yizan saw a piece of news on TV. Child kidnappings were frequent, and the murderer was still on the loose. And soon, Yizan thought of a way to trick Conan. Yizan looked at the elementary school students who went to school with Conan, and a smile cracked his mouth. Kidnapping case, make an oolong kidnapping case in front of Conan, don't know what Conan will do. Yizan said, and quickly began to check the flow of various fates. Soon _ Okay, that's it. Following Yizan's words, Yizan quickly started the arrangement. It didn't take long for something to happen that terrified Conan. In the game of hide-and-seek, Conan easily wins by relying on his super powerful IQ and observation skills. However, during the rotation, Ayumi, who was playing with Conan, hid in the back of the car and fell asleep slowly, while Yuanta, who was playing with everyone, couldn't find Ayumi. In a hurry, Yuantai found Conan. Although Conan radioed her to Ayumi, but... Ah! Ayumi exclaimed in a low voice. But found a head in the trunk of the car. Conan, on the other hand, quickly recalled the serial kidnapping and killing of girls he had seen before. Conan suspected that the two men in the car were the gangsters in that incident. Not good, Conan exclaimed quickly and started his journey to find Ayumi. Ha ha ha, Yizan laughed while watching Conan's actions. In my heart, like eating popsicles in dog days, my heart is so cool and soaring. You, Conan saw Yizan and said instantly angrily, what are you laughing at? Do you know that he is a murderer? Yizan waved his hand, it's really fun. Conan glanced at Yizan angrily, but in the end he didn't say anything to Yizan, and quickly followed the car. And Yizan, who was the one who planned this incident, naturally would not let these good shows go, and followed behind everyone leisurely. What on earth are you trying to do? Conan yelled angrily, looking at Yizan's appearance. Me, I just want to see your anxious look. Seeing you being so busy, I finally feel refreshed. When you troubled me all day, did you think about today? Yizan slowly said. But Yizan's words made Conan angry. What exactly do you want to do? Don't do anything. Didn't I tell you? I'm watching a good show. Yizan said as he looked at Conan. When Yizan said this, Conan ignored Yizan, kept up with the vehicle, and entered the vehicle quickly. Then, there was a big joke. Ha 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 ha. Yizan looked at Conan's embarrassed look and laughed loudly. It's so fun, so fun. I've already filmed it. The young detective Oolong solved the case. Yizan covered his stomach and did not hide his ridicule at all. And Yizan's behavior made many children who thought they were juvenile investigation team, together with Conan glared at him. So, I said, go home and eat more milk, wait until your IQ is developed, and then do these IQ exercises. Yizan said, shook his head, pretended to be angry, turned away, and was refreshed. Chapter 31-Garden Murdered. In the same place, Conan and the others watched Yizan leave and felt that they had no love for life. Conan was really embarrassed to encounter such an oolong incident. He's really annoying. Yuantai and these little friends looked down upon Yizan's departure, and were very annoyed. Yizan, on the other hand, was comfortably served by number 18 in his mansion. Teasing such a brat makes you so happy. Number 18 is very strange about Yizan's happiness. From number 18 feet's point of view, although the soul in Conan's body is a high school student, no matter in number 18 feet's eyes, in Yizan's eyes, Conan is just a child. After all, under the strong observation power brought by the strong mental power of the two, Conan's detective work is really nothing. Conan didn't know that he was underestimated, and now Conan hates Yizan even more. Conan, who hated Yizan, came to Shaolin's house. "Lan, do you know about Yizan?" Conan said, looking at Shaolin. Shaolin directly knocked on Conan's head. "Lan is not your name." Conan looked at Shaolin awkwardly, but found that Shaolin was already lying on the sofa, and her lazy appearance was very similar to Yizan. "Lan, you don't want to be like this." Conan's voice just fell. A headbutt landed on Conan's head again. "I said, you can't call me Lan, it's really not cute, you have to call me Sister Shaolin," Shaolin said to Conan. This made Conan speechless for a while, but he didn't continue to say anything, just looked at Shaolin and said, "Tell me about Yizan." Conan's words made Shaolin look at Conan in surprise. "Why did you suddenly remember to hear about Yizan? You don't hate him anymore?" Conan smiled embarrassingly, but he didn't tell the truth. After all, Conan knew very well that Shaolin was definitely not ordinary to Yizan. "Okay, Yizan, he looks a little more serious." Shaolan slowly began to tell Conan about Yizan. And when Shaolan told Conan about this, on the 18th, he came to Yizan, and a document in his hand made Yizan's face a little cold. "Is this true?" Yizan asked while looking at the information in his hand, frowning tightly. "It should be true," Number 18 said to Yizan. "After all, I've been watching it all the time, I can't be wrong." On the 18th, Yizan looked at the information in his hand, finally put it down, and said to the 18th, "I'm going to go out. If you're here, take care of it first." "Well, okay," Number 18 bowed slightly. Seeing this, Yizan quickly moved away from the distance. On the 18th, he looked at the documents that Yizan put on the table. The photos of Suzuki Sonoko came into view, and there were several corpses lying next to them, and the corpses were painted with strange patterns similar to the other side of the flower. And when Yizan left the room, Conan looked at Shaolin and said, "Well, is there anything else?" Shaolin looked at Conan strangely and said, "Of course there is, why are you so strange? Yizan lived there a long time ago, I have been in contact with Yizan all the time, how could something happen in such a short period of time? Tell you everything, besides, I can't remember so many things." Shaolin's words made Conan look at Shaolin suspiciously. Yizan lived in that place a long time ago. Conan's surprised look made Shaolin strangely say, "Yeah, don't you know? Didn't you go in and take a look? I remember from the time I can remember, that mansion has been in that place." Conan stood up quickly. "What about Yizan?" Conan's words made Shaolin cutely hold her finger and said, "Yeah, speaking of this, I suddenly thought of something. I remember seeing Yizan a long time ago, and Yizan is already like this now." Shaolin's words made Conan turn around quickly and head towards Yizan's mansion. "Where are you going, Conan? Conan," Shaolin said strangely behind Conan. However, Conan was already swiftly heading towards Yizan's mansion. Shaolin could only quickly keep up with Conan. However, when Conan and Shaolin went to Yizan's mansion where only Number 18 was left. On the other hand, Yizan had already arrived at the residence of a wealthy businessman. The residence of this wealthy businessman is none other than Suzuki Sonoko's home. In Suzuki Sonoko's boudoir, Yizan lay casually on Suzuki Sonoko's bed, with a silver mask on his face, engraved with a mysterious and beautiful evil charm flower. Yizan came to Suzuki Sonoko's boudoir not long after. Something happened that made Yizan's eyes light up. Whoa, whoa, whoa. There was a sound of water flowing that Yizan was very familiar with. Still the same formula, still the familiar smell, Suzuki Sonoko is taking a bath. Yizan didn't say a word and went directly outside the bathroom. "It's good to take a bath, it's healthy and hygienic." Yizan nodded, thinking so. But the eyes are looking at the scene inside without blinking, and the big eyes are staring at no one. In this way, without Suzuki Sonoko noticing at all, Yizan completely saw Suzuki Sonoko's body clearly. 0.6. It's really white, it's really big. Yizan sighed. I didn't expect that. It usually doesn't look like a mountain or leaks, but when I take off my clothes, tisk tisk. Yizan looked at Suzuki Sonoko in front of him, shaking his head constantly, looking at the beautiful scenery in front of him. Under Yizan's gaze, Suzuki Sonoko looked at his hands coldly. I killed someone. I didn't expect it to be so easy to kill, Suzuki Sonoko said, quietly looking at her body. The beautiful body was covered with thin streams of water, making it even more beautiful. And Yizan looked at all this eagerly, and the flames rose in his heart. What a beautiful scenery. Following Yizan's words, Suzuki Sonoko suddenly looked at Yizan beside him. Who is it? Chapter 32 changes in the garden. Who is it? Only then did Suzuki Sonoko see his side, and I don't know when a mysterious man with a white mask appeared. Ah, you're talking about me. Yizan raised his head in a silly manner, looked at Yuanzi's white body and said, what are you looking at me for? Keep taking a shower, keep going. With Yizan's words, Suzuki Sonoko grabbed the bath towel beside him, wrapped it around him quickly, then grabbed a thin wire on one side, turned around, and quickly wrapped the wire around Yizan's neck. Squeak. Between Suzuki Sonoko's hand and the wire, the harsh sound kept ringing, making Yizan a little hard to breathe. However, at this time of crisis, Yizan was concerned about his back. On his back, a pair of soft giants kept twisting on Yizan's back because they were restraining Yizan's neck with wires. Right. Addition, the faucet has never been turned off at 30, the turbulent situation and scenery are extremely attractive, but this is without seeing Suzuki Sonoko holding a wire around Yizan's neck tightly in his hands. After a while, Suzuki Sonoko saw that Yizan didn't have any suffocation reaction, suddenly raised his foot, and kicked directly between Yizan's feet. In desperation, Yizan could only give up the feeling behind him. Yeah, Lala, it's not good for a girl to be so murderous, Yizan said to Suzuki Sonoko. Yizan's words made Suzuki Sonoko turn over and came directly in front of Yizan, his eyes fixed on Yizan's neck. Seeing this, Yizan rubbed his neck and said to Suzuki Sonoko, don't be so surprised, you are too weak. Following Yizan's words, the killing intent on Yizan's body radiated a little. Although Yizan's killing intent only radiated a little, the terrifying aura still pervaded the entire bathroom room. The feeling of walking out of a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood made Suzuki Sonoko almost breathless. Yizan looked at Suzuki Sonoko, shook his head slowly, and put away the breath on his body. Suzuki Sonoko took a heavy breath and looked at Yizan. You, who are you? You killed so many people. Suzuki Sonoko could hardly believe the fact he received. How could there be such a terrifying existence in this world? With such a powerful murderous aura, how many people should this person kill? Ah, it's really good. I didn't expect that in such a short period of time. There was already a preliminary murderous intent, but just by killing a few people, the murderous intent has been condensed, and the existence of the killing intent can already be sensed, and I know what the hell is going on with the killing intent. Yizan said slowly. I didn't expect it. It's very good. Not only can it undertake the fate line, but also have such talent. Yizan's words made Suzuki Sonoko look at Yizan cautiously. A pair of jade hands slightly circled around his own, and looked at Yizan. What the hell do you want to do? Do you want to become more perfect? Become a truly perfect woman, powerful, beautiful. Yizan whispered in Suzuki Sonoko's ear like a demon. Suzuki Sonoko looked at Yizan. Even if I agree, what can you get? Yizan looked at Suzuki Sonoko with a smile on the corner of his mouth. You know what? How fascinating is it to create a piece of art that makes you feel perfect? All I can get is, you. A work of art you can't believe yourself. Suzuki Sonoko glanced at Yizan, and after a while, looked at Yizan with an evil smile on the corner of his mouth, and finally nodded. Okay, I agree. Suzuki Sonoko's words made Yizan smile even more. looked at Suzuki Sonoko and said, "Then, you will not regret your choice today." Yizan said, directly hugged Suzuki Sonoko and said, "Then, the first thing is to make your appearance and figure more perfect first." Then, Suzuki Sonoko watched in shock as Yizan carried him onto the bed and put his hands up and down. "You are..." Suzuki Sonoko looked at Yizan suspiciously. "Don't talk," Yizan said coldly to Suzuki Sonoko. To kill him once he found out that Yizan was not the extraordinary person he imagined. However, it didn't take long for Suzuki Sonoko to feel a different feeling. Suzuki Sonoko felt as if she had become light and airy. So comfortable. Suzuki Sonoko narrowed his eyes slightly. However, after a while, Suzuki Sonoko suddenly felt that he weighed more than 1,000 pounds. "Ah!" Suzuki Sonoko exclaimed suddenly, as if he had fallen directly from the clouds, full of panic, and the feeling of lightness disappeared instantly. Suzuki Sonoko's exclamation quickly attracted the attention of some people in the family. "Sonoko 953. What's wrong with you?" "No, nothing," Suzuki Sonoko said quickly, and there was a hint of panic in his voice. "Is it really all right? Why am I scared to hear your voice?" "It's all right, it's just a nightmare," Suzuki Sonoko said slowly, but his eyes were fixed on Yizan. Yizan, who was wearing a silver-white mask, couldn't see anything wrong at all, only showing one eye. Yizan's eyes are also deep and terrifying, and he can't see any emotions. "Huh." Suzuki Sonoko took a deep breath, looked at Yizan and said, "What happened just now?" Yizan waved his hand casually but did not answer Suzuki Sonoko's words. Instead, he asked a mindless question. "Suzuki Sonoko, do you think there are ghosts in this world?" Yizan's words made Suzuki Sonoko silent for a while, and then slowly said, "If I used to be very sure that there were no ghosts in this world, but now I can't be sure." Suzuki Sonoko's words, "Let Yizan know," must be Suzuki Sonoko's change of opinion after knowing the illusory matter of fate. Chapter 33_Tracking Device. Yizan looked at Suzuki Sonoko who was not very sure and said, "Then, if I make you a ghost, how would you feel?" Yizan looked at Suzuki Sonoko and said so. After hearing Yizan's words, Suzuki Sonoko looked at Yizan in shock. "Really? Can you really turn me into a ghost?" Yizan tilted his head. "Of course, how? Are you interested?" Suzuki Sonoko nodded quickly. Of course. Of course I'm interested. Did I just feel like turning into a ghost? So I can already become a ghost?" Yizan looked at Suzuki Sonoko's excited appearance, and shook his head slightly. "It's so simple there." Suzuki Sonoko looked at Yizan in surprise. "Do you need anything else?" Yizan said slowly, "Well, it will take some time. What I use for you is to turn you into a spirit body, but there are still some things that need to be paid attention to avoid problems." Suzuki Sonoko nodded, closed his eyes and said, "Come on then. That's it for today, I'll be here tomorrow," Yizan said, and the figure had already disappeared in front of Suzuki Sonoko. Suzuki Sonoko watched Yizan leave, and was slightly silent. Not long after, Suzuki Sonoko closed his eyes slightly and began to slowly realize the feeling just now. But Suzuki Sonoko didn't know that his behavior was very dangerous. Because the method Yizan himself adopts is the spiritualization technique of the Hokage ninja world, which can turn people into a spiritual body. However, this technique itself is extremely dangerous, and now Suzuki Sonoko actually realizes this technique by himself. Extremely dangerous. And when Yizan was at Suzuki Sonoko's house, the door of Yizan's mansion. "No," 18 frowned and looked at Conan and Shaolin in front of him. "What are you doing here? You are not welcome here." Shaolin looked at number 18 and said with some fear in her heart, "Let's come to Yizan." "Yizan isn't here," number 18 said firmly, then turned around and entered the room. Number 18 by accident, and number 18 quickly ran away from Conan. "Humph." Number 18 took a deep look at Conan and then closed the door. And Conan's mouth evoked a smile. "Success." After doing all this, outside the door, Conan and Shaolin can only leave. Shaolin's mood was a little down. She didn't know why both Yizan and number 18 seemed to have some distance from her. The feeling of being separated by a mountain made Shaolin very disliked. Ah! Shaolin sighed slightly, and could only temporarily return to the detective agency with Conan. Conan, who had just returned to the detective agency, immediately opened his eyes, and instantly a radar-like map appeared in Conan's eyes, but it was the tracking glasses given to Conan by Dr. glued to 18 feet's body. However, Conan did not know that the existence of number 18 is far beyond the crystallization of technology in his own world. Originally, number 18, who is an artificial man with a collection of many technologies, has undergone many changes since then. The current number 18 has the technological content is absolutely extraordinary, and even includes some mysterious things that appear in the human body. These things are not known to Akatsuki by Conan. Therefore, if Conan follows his transmitter to see now, he can see that his transmitter is now attached to a stray dog. The next day, when Conan was about to trace his sender to see, the detective agency had a commission. Conan could only give up temporarily to find number 18, and followed Mori Kogoro to complete the commission. After all, Conan knew Mori deeply. What level is Kogoro, if not for himself? This commission is a commission to find people. Soon, Conan found the client's father Kenzo at the racetrack based on the information provided by the client. 18 who seemed to be wandering aimlessly all the time. Huchi. Conan was tired like a dog tracking his transmitter, seeing that the transmitter was not fast, but he didn't expect it to be so difficult to catch up, and looking at the abandoned surroundings, Conan was more sure of his guess. There must be something wrong with Yizan and number 18. Conan said so. And Conan didn't know, when he was saying this. Regarding Yizan and number 18 both looked at the image in front of him. Yizan laughed out loud. Ha ha ha, this is really fun. Number 18, I didn't expect you to come up with such a bad move. Yizan looked at Conan's behavior in the video and said so. No, 18 shrugged his shoulders casually and said, showing off this kind of gadget in front of me, his heart is really big. Yizan waved his hand. You don't need to say that, the technological level of this world is naturally inferior to the Dragon Ball world we were in before. The 18th was about to say something, but Yizan suddenly stopped the 18th, because the most exciting moment was coming. Of the sender, a place where stray dogs were concentrated. Conan's eyes widened in surprise, looking at everything in front of him. His sender was actually installed on the body of a stray dog. Yizan, number 18, Conan yelled angrily. No way, Conan's IQ, which he has always been proud of, was ruthlessly crushed by absolute strength. Chapter 34 _ The curse on Conan's back. Conan felt like a SB, following a stray dog, wandering around for a long time. Although he was extremely annoyed, Conan still couldn't do anything about it. He glanced at the stray dogs who were all gathered towards him and grinned at Kiba, and after looking at the transmitter on the taller stray dog among the stray dogs, Conan frowned again bitterly, in his heart. Yizan's anger was beyond words. The extremely angry Conan could only make up his mind again. I must find evidence and send you to prison. Conan said, looking at the many stray dogs. He could only start his head again and start to get back his sender. Ha 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 ha, it's so fun. Yizan laughed when he saw Conan's embarrassed look. On the 18th, seeing Yizan laughing, he turned over a Byakugan helplessly. This kind of ordinary person, you have such a sense of accomplishment when you play tricks. Yizan looked at number 18 who looked down on Conan, and shook his head slightly. Don't look down on Conan, you underestimate the Son of Destiny. As I said, once the Son of Destiny encounters danger, the entire world will run. In order to protect the Son of Destiny, the number 18 is you. If you don't use extraordinary power, you just use your power or the amount of power that a normal human can accept to kill Conan. You absolutely can't succeed. Hearing Yizan's words on the 18th, he opened his mouth slightly in surprise. 18 had no doubts about Yizan's words, but number 18 still had a feeling of disbelief. Yizan looked at number 18's disbelieving look, and said slowly, "Otherwise, let's play a game. I'll send a death invitation to Conan, and then you can experiment. You don't need to be extraordinary. Power, just use the power of normal people and the forces you built to complete the kill, and even I can give you a certain help in destiny. You can feel the strength of the Son of Destiny. By the way, let me take a look. Conan was defeated by you, the appearance of teasing and the flow of fate in the Son of Destiny." Yizan's words made number 18 nodded and agreed with Yizan's words. And when the 18th launched his own power to find Conan's stubble, Conan returned to the detective agency in a state of embarrassment covered in paw prints. He was extremely tired and dusty. Well, he was more tired. "Finally done," Conan said, panting. His body has been completely cleaned, but it has been washed. However, before Conan had a little rest, another troublesome thing appeared. After Conan himself completed the mission to find the person before, the news of the death of the client's father Kenzo is now heard. The helpless Conan can only be like a dog, tired and sticking out his tongue to solve the case quickly, just want to hurry up all this last night, and then go back to sleep. However, the more anxious, the more troublesome things get. While Conan was constantly looking for clues, on the other hand, Yizan was slightly out of breath, and a drop of sweat was slowly dripping from his forehead. "Ah la la," Yizan took a breath and said to number 18 beside him. "As expected of the Son of Destiny, he is really strong. Relying on my current understanding of fate, I want to award Death God after the invitation. It was still a bit tiring." Quote. Looking at the sweat on Yizan's face on the 18th, he said in disbelief, "I didn't expect it to be so miraculous." 18 knows Yizan's toughness very well. It can be said that if Yizan wants to kill himself, number 18 has no confidence to escape from Yizan's hands. Don't look at number 18, who inherited most of Yizan's assets. Strength, but Yizan did not become weak because of this. On the contrary, Yizan, who was in the Dragon Ball world before, can still detect a little bit of Yizan's strength on the 18th. Once Yizan breaks out into a fight, the 18th can also feeling Yizan's energy, but now, Yizan always looks lazy and lazy, but on the 18th, he sees Yizan's own attacks again and again. Those mysterious and powerful Mysterious Destiny's attack has always been calm. But now, launching an attack on Conan made Yizan look tired. "It's really amazing," number 18 said. When saying this on the 18th, Conan sighed. Conan has solved the murder case, and said to everyone wearily, "I'm tired, I want to go back to rest." Shaolin nodded and walked towards the detective agency with Kogoro Mori. "The troublesome thing has just appeared." "Conan." Shaolin pointed at Conan's back in shock. This made Conan look at Shaolin strangely. "What's wrong? Sister Shaolin, is there any problem?" Shaolin pointed to Conan's back and said, "You, behind you." Conan touched his back strangely. "Then I got a snow-white flower." Snow White, other shore flowers. His. In an instant, Conan, who knew the meaning of snow-white other side flower, took a deep breath. "What the hell is going on here? Didn't that Yizan tell us that we are the children of destiny?" Conan said in surprise. "Did he lie to us?" Shaolin didn't care about these things. She directly grabbed Conan and walked towards the mansion where Yizan was. However, Conan and Shaolin experienced the most incredible and dark and unfortunate journey in their entire lives. Before getting into the car, the tires of the car were strangely flattened, and they were finally fixed, and they encountered a car accident not long after starting. Then, all kinds of high-altitude objects, all kinds of dangers. Everything made Conan and Shaolin tremble with fear. Under this kind of trepidation, the two became more determined to go to Yizan's residence. But neither of them knew that Yizan and number 18 were quietly in the mansion they were going to, watching everything that happened to them. Chapter 35 I won't die without you. No, 18 looked at everything that happened to Conan in surprise. To be honest, Conan's current accident was also part of number 18's own actions. Even number 18 borrowed some of Yizan's understanding of fate. If this situation is placed on ordinary people, or even on people with strong physiques such as special forces, it will definitely be fatal. After all, many of these things are unpredictable, and even if this kind of accident is on the 18th, it is impossible to predict in advance. But on Conan seems to have the ability to predict the future, and he avoided it at the most critical time, but even so, there were still some attacks that caused Conan to suffer some insignificant injuries. Is this the power of the Son of Destiny? Number 18 looked at Conan and shook his head in disbelief. Yizan looked at number 18 and said, "Now you know why I have been paying attention to this kid." Yizan's words made number 18 nodded in surprise, and looked at Conan with the look of a giant panda. Yizan looked at number 18's surprised look, and said casually, "Okay, this is normal, I have said it a long time ago, the fate I understand is definitely not as simple as you think." Seeing this on the 18th, he smiled a little embarrassedly. What Yizan said was actually the idea of the 18th. Ever since the 18th knew what Yizan was thinking, he had never understood what Yizan was doing. On the 18th, even if fate is strong, compared to the strong strength, it must still be out of reach, but I didn't expect. Looking at Conan on the 18th, Conan's Son of Destiny couldn't figure it out, and Yizan was definitely more powerful than Conan. Number 18 looked at Yizan's back in silence, the admiration in his eyes surging like a tide. After Yizan and his return home on the 18th, Conan and Xiaolan came to the door of Yizan's mansion. Ding dong. With the sound of the doorbell, number 18, who had known this situation for a long time, quickly came to the gate and looked at Conan and Xiaolan. "It's you." Conan looked at number 18 who ignored him, and quickly took out the white other side flower. On the 18th, looking at the blood-white other side flower in Conan's hand, a stunning smile suddenly burst into the corner of his mouth, looking at Conan and said, "Congratulations, the boy who has never believed in fate. This time, you can finally prove that fate exists, and what is it?" No. 18 seemed to be gloating at the misfortune, so Xiaolan bowed to number 18 and said, "Sorry, his attitude was really bad before, but it's a matter of life, please don't do this." Xiaolan's words made number 18 shrug his shoulders casually. "Don't tell me, I won't care what you say anyway." "No," 18 said, turned around and entered the door. Xiaolan hurriedly followed in, and Conan also followed after seeing this. In the mansion, Yizan was still lying on the sofa in that lazy posture as always, and after seeing number 18 brought in Xiaolan and Conan, a smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. "It's Xiaolan who is here. What's the matter? Is there something wrong?" Yizan's words made Conan a little helpless. From the fact that he and others entered Yizan's mansion, Yizan knew about the blood and white flowers, and Yizan must also know about the blood and white flowers that he received now, but... Well, Yizan pretended not to know, and there was nothing Conan could do. After all, Conan himself asked others. In desperation, Conan could only take out his other side flower and said to Yizan, "I have received an invitation from the god of death." Conan's words made Yizan nod his head. "Well, what about when I know?" Conan and Xiaolan were a little overwhelmed, and there was nothing they could do. Yizan's previous attitude was completely different from his current attitude. Yizan did everything for him before, and he didn't even know that he had received this thing, but now, this attitude is completely different. However, Conan is also a little regretful in his heart. After all, this consequence was completely caused by his own death. It's just that the regret in Conan's heart is not very deep now. Now Conan still doesn't know what the blood and white flower on the other side of the death invitation he received represents. If Conan's experience was placed on the body of the marshal who had not died, the marshal would definitely be ecstatic. However, as the saying goes, there is happiness in comparison, and now Conan still doesn't know how precious he has lost. Therefore, although Yizan was very indifferent to Conan, which made Conan a little regretful, he didn't have too many thoughts in his heart. In Conan's view, the only thing left was to be a little tired. Moreover, Not only Conan thought this way, but Xiaolan also felt the same way. This idea is actually quite normal, just like you don't know the importance of health until you are sick. Some things are only cherished when they are lost. Yizan looked at Conan and Xiaolan. What's wrong? Is there anything else? Xiaolan looked at Yizan and said, can't you really be helping Conan? Yizan glanced at Conan. Didn't he always like me saving him and killing hundreds of lives? Yizan waved his hand casually and said, then, this time, I will leave it to him to solve it by himself. Anyway, it is not a big deal. With the identity of the Son of Destiny, he will not die. The big deal is to lose the identity of the Son of Destiny. Now, what a big deal. Yizan said and glanced at number 18, who was standing on the side, and hugged number 18 directly, feeling the comfort of Nephrite in his arms, and said to Conan who was stomping on the side, why? Still standing here, waiting for me to see off the guests. Hurry up, stay away from me, so as not to be implicated by you. Yizan's words made Conan look at Yizan angrily. HMPH, just leave, I'll let you see, without you, I still won't die. Chapter 36_Ongoing Disasters. After Conan finished speaking, he angrily squeezed his fist and left Yizan's mansion. Xiaolan looked at Yizan, and then glanced at Conan who had left completely, and said helplessly, can't you talk to Conan properly? Speak well. Yizan chuckled lightly, glanced at Xiaolan's perfect figure from top to bottom, and said, I cut off your arm, and then came over without repentance and said it was your fault. I hope you treat me well, will you agree? That's not what it means. Xiaolan waved her hand anxiously and said nervously, Conan is Shinichi after all, you can't take my face. Stop. Yizan looked at Xiaolan, and after a while, he slowly shook his head. It seems that I've been so good to you that you don't even know how much effort I've spent on you, and I feel more and more that my decision not to shoot Conan this time is correct. Yizan shook his head disdainfully, and said slowly, in the days to come, you will see what Conan went through, and you will also know that I was in yours during the previous Shinkansen explosion. How much effort has been spent on it? Xiaolan looked at Yizan's appearance, and knew that Yizan had made up her mind. Instead of taking action on this matter, she could only leave in frustration. As Yizan said, both Conan and Xiaolan now underestimate that little other side flower. That other side flower seems to be just a flower, but in fact it is the embodiment of destiny, and it was the result of being caught by Yizan. The warning, produced by forcibly interfering with the trajectory of fate, can truly manifest the operation of fate. Such a powerful existence is absolutely unusual. And Yizan looked at Conan and Xiaolan who were leaving, when he was about to do something he liked with number 18 in his arms. Yizan and number 18 suddenly stopped and looked in one direction, which was where Suzuki Sonoko lived. Suzuki Sonoko. Yizan and number 18 looked at each other. They quickly came to Suzuki Sonoko. When the two came to Suzuki Sonoko's residence, Suzuki Sonoko's body was like a ghost, and his body was translucent. It seems that she is very concerned about this practice. Number 18 looked at Suzuki Sonoko's body and said to Yizan. Yizan nodded. Suzuki Sonoko looked like this. Both of them knew the reason, they were overcultivating. Yizan nodded slowly and said to number 18, in such a situation, it's still a little tricky for me to take action. You can take action. No. 18 nodded and started to shoot at Suzuki Sonoko. On the other hand, when Yizan and number 18 were at Suzuki Sonoko's house, Conan encountered a thing. When Conan was walking by a river, he suddenly found that someone on the roof opposite was shooting balloons on the river, and saw that the sniper seemed to be coerced. After those people left, the detective character in Conan's heart reappeared. Soon, amid various natural and man-made disasters, I came to the roof opposite, and it didn't take long to find a calculator with 3,135,134,162 figures. It's really troublesome. Conan skillfully avoided the attack of a sundry. After seeing the arrival of the second sundry, he could only dodge helplessly and minimize the injury. Don't even dare to go to a hospital, Conan said. In response to the successive attacks of various natural and man-made disasters, Conan absolutely dare not go to the hospital now. To know that if you go to the hospital to treat the injury, the first element is to listen to the doctor. However, in this situation, Conan said that he heard the doctor say after not allowing himself to move, Conan himself would never dare to stand still. After all, various scalpels, tweezers and other things are absolutely deadly. In desperation, Conan could only temporarily put his injury aside and wait until he learned to deal with the injury by himself. Unbeknownst to Conan, infections like tetanus are more intractable and deadly than scalpels and tweezers. But now Conan can only give up this idea temporarily, and now Conan just wants to quickly parse out the meaning of this number. So, Conan thought hard about these numbers. When Conan analyzed this number, all kinds of natural and man-made disasters that could have been easily avoided quickly came to Conan. It made Conan's injuries even worse. When Conan could hardly accept it, he was ready to give up thinking. Conan was finally reminded by Yuan-Tai and other children. He thought he had parsed out the meaning of those numbers. He thought that the 162 left by the caller was the 162 National Road. He quickly told Shaolin, and after finding the corresponding road section with Shaolin, he called the police. Ambush. Then Conan began to deal with his wounds, and began to learn how to deal with wounds from the police officer Mumu. But because of the reasons for beginners, coupled with many natural and man-made disasters, Conan's injury has the meaning of getting more serious. Seeing this, Shaolin on the side felt more and more the horror of fate in Yizan's mouth. In these days, Shaolin has been watching Conan, and what happened to Conan has opened Shaolin's eyes, and all kinds of unexpected accidents have even made Shaolin feel unacceptable. Because Shaolin has seen Conan suffering a tragedy while eating and sleeping more than once, and even when Conan goes to the toilet, there will be a tinkling bump. Obviously, Conan can't even go to the toilet. Conan, otherwise, let's find Yizan again, Shaolin said while looking at Conan. Conan shook his head quickly, saying that he would never go to Yizan. Conan, are you sure it's here? Why haven't you come yet? Officer Mu's words made Conan frown tightly. After a while, he suddenly shouted, "No! It's not here!" Following Conan's words, everyone quickly shifted their positions. Chapter 37 _ Conan lost his destiny. Conan shifted positions. On the other hand, Suzuki Sonoko slowly opened his eyes and looked at Yizan, who was wearing a white mask of silver carved with the flower of the other side, and number 18, who was covered with a veil on one side. "Ah, why are you here?" Suzuki Sonoko was about to get up. But Yizan pressed Suzuki Sonoko on the bed. "Don't get up, you are too impatient, the ghost's change has not been completely completed, don't be too impatient." "Sorry," Suzuki Sonoko said to Yizan. Yizan waved his hand. "It's okay, just pay a little attention in the future." After Yizan said something, "That's all for today. You don't have to worry too much. Although today's things are dangerous, they are not without benefits. At the very least, your practice time will be shortened a lot." Yizan's words made Suzuki Sonoko look at Yizan in surprise. "Really?" "Yeah." Yizan nodded and said to number 18, "Let's go." After such an interruption, Yizan didn't have the heart to continue doing shameful things with number 18, so he went to sleep with number 3018 in his arms. While Yizan was sleeping, Conan was lying on a grass, exhausted. After so many days of fighting against various natural and man-made disasters, the snow-white other side flower in Conan's hands finally withered. However, Conan didn't know why, he just felt as if he had lost something, that kind of heartache, unspeakable. Conan didn't know why, but suddenly remembered what Yizan said to himself, the Son of Destiny. Could it be that my so-called Son of Destiny really disappeared? Conan thought in his heart. After such a short period of time, Conan finally believed Yizan's words, as well as the rumor of the Son of Destiny. And the Son of Destiny, according to Yizan's voice, is definitely not ordinary, but, did he really make this Son of Destiny disappear like this? Forget it. I don't want this. I don't know if there is any case that can be solved. Conan said, looking around. Conan, we're going to find a cat, can you help us find it together? Yuan-Tai asked while looking at the bored Conan. Okay. Conan was also idle and bored, nodded at Yuan-Tai, and agreed with Yuan-Tai's proposal. Time flies, and it didn't take long for Conan to see the cat Yuan-Tai and others were looking for, but... When Yuan-Tai and the others saw the cat, they all screamed, because the cat was covered in blood. It didn't take long for Conan to see a corpse in a family's bathroom. This is... Conan quickly called the police proficiently, and Officer Mumu quickly came to Conan's side. Not long after, everyone knocked on the door of that house. However, the moment he opened the door, Conan knew things were going to go bad. Because the person who opened the door is very similar to the corpse. Although surprised, Conan rushed into the bathroom quickly. And everything is just as Conan imagined, the bathroom is empty and nothing. Conan asked the person who opened the door, but the person who opened the door said that he didn't know anything, saying that he would let Conan and others feel free, while the person who opened the door went back to the second floor to sleep, and what happened next made Conan a little confused, because I found out that I was going to get nothing. This made Conan very puzzled. You must know that in the past, he had solved the case with ease and comfort, but this time, it was as if his head was stuffed with paste. It was obscure and difficult to figure out. Could it be because of the Son of Destiny? Conan thought. Conan shook his head quickly. No, even without the Son of Destiny, I can still be a detective. Conan reluctantly continued to investigate at night. However, this time Conan's infiltration caused Conan to encounter a very dangerous thing. Time passed slowly. Conan looked at the wound on his stomach in astonishment. The blood was flowing slowly, and the feeling of blood loss continued to increase. Is this what death feels like? Conan took a deep breath, after seeing the person who killed him leave. Conan quickly took out his mobile phone. Then quickly dialed a few numbers. Send the news here to Officer Mumu and Shaolin. Conan. Officer Mumu and Shaolin quickly moved towards where Conan was. Not long after, Officer Mumu and Shaolin came to this place. Conan. Soon, Shaolin saw Conan in a pool of blood and shouted in shock. Conan looked at Shaolin dazedly. Sorry, Shaolin, it was my fault. My Son of Destiny is gone, so, I'm dead. Conan's words made Shaolin suddenly widen her eyes. The meaning of Conan's words is very clear. Conan's death turned out to be because of the loss of the Son of Destiny. Shaolin also suddenly understood, and Yizan had said that the Son of Destiny would hardly be killed, but now Conan's injuries are about to die, and it looks like he was killed by the murderer. How did you lose your Son of Destiny? Shaolin looked at Conan in surprise and asked. Conan put his eyes on a withered other side flower in his pocket, and said to Shaolin, my death invitation has finally passed, but unfortunately, the Son of Destiny is gone. Conan's words made Shaolin shout quickly. No, no, you must be fine, I'll go find Yizan. As Conan said, he was about to take Conan to Yizan's residence, but Officer Mumu stopped Shaolin's actions. Send him to the hospital first, otherwise, he may not be able to persist until he goes to Yizan. Officer Mu said. At the words of Officer Mumu, Shaolin looked around, but finally decided to obey Officer Mumu's words. Little Lan didn't know, but Officer Mumu's choice brought Conan one step closer to the god of death. However, everyone still doesn't know that after catching the murderer, Officer Mu quickly went to the hospital with Shaolin to see Conan. Chapter 38-Murder Scene. In the hospital, Conan's injury continued to worsen. After a while, the hospital issued a critical illness notice. And Shaolin quickly went to Yizan's residence. It didn't take long for Shaolin to come to Yizan's residence. Yizan. Shaolin pulled Yizan anxiously. Come with me quickly. What are you doing? Yizan lay lazily on the sofa. Yizan naturally knew why Shaolin came to this place, but Yizan would not be bored to rescue Conan. Although that kid did bring him a lot of fun, but now Yizan doesn't need Conan to grind by his side. Conan was killed, you must save Conan, Shaolin said to Yizan. However, Yizan stood still, looked at Shaolin and said, why? Why should I save him? I said it long ago, he himself did not listen to advice. Yizan said to Shaolin slowly. Yizan's words made Shaolin open her mouth, and after a while, she looked at Yizan, can't you really save him? Yizan waved his hand casually. I said, plus, I have saved Conan once before, and the result made me very dissatisfied, so, I will not do the same thing again, no matter what. What do you say? Yizan said, facing Shaolin. Okay, since you are here, I don't need to say more about the rest, that's all. Shaolin shouted quickly and said to Yizan, why don't you save Conan again, he knows he is wrong. Yizan looked at Shaolin slowly and said, know what's wrong. Some things can be known to be wrong, but, for some things, knowing what's wrong or not knowing what's wrong doesn't change anything at all. It's like a murderer, even if he knows he's wrong. Now, it's still a murderer. And Conan's mistake is an even more unforgivable mistake if he doesn't kill. Yizan said and gestured to number 18, so in the midst of Shaolin's resistance, number 18 sent Shaolin away. I really don't know, husband, why do you want to turn Shaolin into the son of destiny? Look at her, why do you still like her so much if you are entangled with Conan? Number 18 said to Yizan. Yizan shook his head slightly. It doesn't matter if you like it or not, Shaolin, you don't feel anything when she's around, but if you're not around, you always feel that something is missing. What? Yizan's words made number 18 a little stunned, not knowing what Yizan said. Yizan said to number 18, to put it simply, if we are yuhi flowers, then Shaolin is a green leaf. As the saying goes, a yuhi flower needs green leaves to complement it. That's why I turned Shaolin into a child of destiny. However, you are right about one thing, this little land is indeed a bit too much for Conan, but, well, it is estimated that something will happen to Conan in a short time. Yizan was talking. Ding dong. The doorbell rang again. Huh, Yizan looked at number 18, didn't you send Shaolin away? No, 18 nodded, but he had already opened the door. Huh, it's you. Number 18 looked at the person in front of the door and said strangely, Officer Mumu, why are you here? Officer Mew Mew nodded and said to number 18, I'm looking for Yizan, I have something to ask him. Who is it? Yizan's lazy words rang in number 18 feet's ear. Police, Mumu. Well, come in, Yizan said slowly. Following Yizan's words, on the 18th, police officer Mew Mew came to Yizan. Officer Mew Mew came to Yizan, looking at Yizan's calm appearance, a flower of the other side of the orangutan yuhi appeared in his hand. This made Yizan's eyes widen suddenly, the original lazy breath disappeared instantly, turned into an extremely ferocious aura like a wild beast, and then disappeared quickly. Everything happened in the blink of an eye, making people feel a kind of weak legs illusion. Yizan looked at the gorilla yuhi's other side flower in the hands of police officer Mew Mew and said, where did it come from? It's not on you, right? Yizan didn't notice from the police officer Mumu that the fate was not working right. Officer Mumu nodded and said, it was discovered at the scene of a murder, so come here and ask what you think. Yizan smiled slightly, and asked with interest, interesting, it's so interesting, let's go and have a look together. Under normal circumstances, the blood and white flowers are sent by Yizan, and this time, Yizan can't remember that he has sent the blood and white flowers, but the one in the hands of the police officer Mumu is definitely the blood and white flowers, which makes Yizan very curious. Who sent this bloody white flower, and how did it come about? Officer Mumu looked at Yizan in surprise. Originally, Officer Mumu just came to ask, and didn't even plan to let Yizan answer him, but he didn't expect that the final result would be Yizan and himself. Good. Officer Mew Mew spoke quickly and hurriedly led the way ahead, while Yizan casually walked with number 18. Before long, everyone came to the home of an antique collector. This is the crime scene. Officer Mew Mew quickly brought Yizan to a room. They were the people who were here at the time of the crime. Officer Mu's words just let Yizan wave his hand casually. Needless to say, the murderer has almost been determined. Yizan said, his eyes focused on a cabinet. What's the matter? Officer Mumu's gaze followed Yizan's, and was placed on the cabinet full of sword marks. I really don't know how you became a police officer. Yizan glanced at Officer Mu, and pointed at a sword mark on it at will. I saw that this sword mark was broken from the middle, which means that this cabinets are adjusted and who adjusts this thing? Isn't that obvious enough? Yizan said casually. Rearrange the order of the drawers in the cabinet. Not long after, number 18 looked at Yizan and said, it's already healed. Well, okay, don't talk more than me about the rest. Yizan said something casually and looked around. Chapter 39-Addicted. Although the fate of the whole scene was very smooth, Yizan always felt that something was wrong, but Yizan couldn't feel what was wrong. Orangutan Yuhi's other side flower in the hands of Officer Mumu. He could only sigh helplessly. It seemed that he needed to continue investigating for a while before he could find out the answer. Yizan didn't care much about these things, and after investigating the murderer, he left the place directly. Are you a detective? How do you know that cabinet was moved? What Yizan could not have imagined was that not long after Yizan went out, he met many reporters and began to ask around him. Yizan took a step back, preventing many reporters from reaching him. Frowned and glanced at the police officer Mumu. To be honest, this point of your police officers is really annoying. Since you invited me over, don't you know how to keep it a secret? Yizan said something, ignored the many reporters who were stunned, and drove away quickly in a luxury car when everyone could not react. Wow! And then, many reporters looked at Yizan's car in astonishment, with a look of envy in their eyes. Then, I suddenly reacted, big news. The rich and the police fall out. Two-faced, rich, detective. The story detectives and cops have to tell. After a series of eye-catching news, many reporters rushed towards police officer Mumu like a shark who smelled blood, surrounded him directly, and quickly began to inquire about various news. Master, is it really good for you to buy Officer Mumu like this? Number 18 looked at Yizan with a smile. Although he said this, his expression was still in action, all of which explained what number 18 was thinking. Well done. Yizan naturally knew what number 18 was thinking, but just smiled casually, but didn't say much. And while Yizan was doing this, something that Yizan never expected happened. In the hospital, Shaolin looked at Conan, and the corners of her mouth pursed slightly. Shaolin knows exactly how to save Conan, she only needs to kill. But I really can't do it. Shaolin looked at Conan, not knowing what to do. For Conan, a neighbor, Shaolin still couldn't sit back and ignore it. Am I really going to kill someone? Shaolin finally shook her head quickly, saying that she couldn't do it. In Shaolin's heart, Yizan's figure appeared again. What do I want him to do? Shaolin said softly, but Yizan's words kept popping up in her heart, and various methods were constantly circling in her mind. However, there is no way for Ran to save Conan. Yeah, coming back from the dead, how unbelievable it sounds, there is such a simple thing there. Shaolin recalled the method Yizan had taken to save herself before, which were hundreds of thousands of cases. Life. We really shouldn't treat Yizan like that. Shaolin's remorse rose again. And when Shaolin didn't know how to save Conan, Conan's parents gathered together and looked solemnly at a pattern on the table. Are you sure you want to do this? Yasaka Kudo looked at the pattern in front of him with a firm look in his eyes. Yukiko Kudo also looked at this pattern, with a tangled look on her face. This pattern looked so weird, like a devil. Even if it was placed quietly on the table, it exuded an evil spirit. It looks like a strange other side flower at first glance, very strange. Yukiko Kudo looked at Yasaka Kudo and said, I heard that Shinichi seems to have the identity of the Son of Destiny, and this identity seems to be very important. If I want to get this identity, I will investigate, and it seems that hundreds of lives are needed. Not even thousands of lives are impossible. Kudo Yasaka nodded. But, for Shinichi. Yes, Yasaka Kudo and Yukiko Kudo are going to save Conan, and the way to save Conan turned out to be the method of spreading from Yizan that they learned from somewhere. Yukiko Kudo finally nodded. In fact, both of them had already had this idea long ago. This time, it was just the final confirmation. With the final confirmation of the two, a series of strange deaths began to occur, and many deaths were characterized as accidents and suicides, because both Kudo Yasaka and Kudo Yukiko were both interested in detectives. Work very well. Planning such a thing is simply a matter of grasping at your fingertips. Time flies. When the two kept killing others to save Conan. Yizan, on the other hand, seemed very leisurely, flirting with number 18, and pretending to be in front of Suzuki Sonoko. The day passed so leisurely. This day, Yizan was pulled by number 18 to go shopping. As a result, the shopping was too much fun. Finally. Ah, it's closed. Number 18 looked at the department store in front of him and pouted. There is a piece of clothing in it. I liked it before, but I didn't have time to buy it. Yizan looked at number 18 and smiled helplessly. Okay, I know, it's fine if we don't go in, what a big deal. Yizan said slowly, and entered the department store with number 18. However, after the two entered the department store, a snow-white other-side flower fell on Yizan's body. Huh. Yizan looked around suspiciously, and soon felt a trace of the fate line. So that's the way it is, because Conan had an accident, and all the cases that should have been solved by Conan got on me. Yizan patted his forehead helplessly and said so while looking at the surrounding department stores. On the other hand, number 18 looked at Yizan excitedly. Really? It's so fun, let's walk around, we've also had a detective addiction. Chapter 40_famous. Yizan looked at number 18's excited look and felt a little helpless. What's the point of being a detective with number 18? It's totally abusive, isn't it? With the powerful observation and thinking ability brought by himself and the powerful mental power of number 18, it is really not difficult to crack the case. However, forget it, as long as you like it. Besides, I really need to deal with these cases a little bit, or it will be bad to rebuild and repair the collapse that triggers fate. Yizan said slowly, and took number 18 into the depths of the department store. Soon, the two saw masked figures holding the guards and staff of the department store hostage. And it seems that there is really something troublesome. Yizan glanced at the crime scene and said to number 18, since it was me who took the shot, in order to save trouble, I would directly get it to the killer's department. To serve as the experimental material for human experiments. Yizan said, his hands slowly sketched in front of everyone. Then, Yizan said to number 18, okay, you can deal with it. Hearing the words on the 18th, he nodded lightly and walked towards the many kidnappers. Ooh. Many of the controlled staff, seeing this, signaled to Yizan and number 18, be careful, after all, the kidnappers have firearms. Yizan and number 18 turned a blind eye to these eyes. Don't come here. Following the kidnappers' shouts, number 18 took a few stools with one hand and threw them at the many kidnappers. Charged towards the kidnapper. The most important thing is, get it done. On the 18th, he said to Yizan, then I'll deal with this garbage first. Well, also, take care of those tails too, and I'll go straight back. Yizan said something to number 18, and in the sight of everyone's surprise, he turned and left. After all, these things at the end involve monitoring and other things. Yizan is really not interested, compared to Yizan number 18, a technological crystallization, he is familiar with this. However, after Yizan and number 18 left. The next morning. With a scream from the department store, Yizan appeared in front of the police again. And even faster than the police, reporters. Kidnapping, robbery. These two things, no matter which one is singled out, are extremely explosive news, and the degree to which they attract attention is self-evident. And this time, the two got together. Many authors expressed that they really liked Yizan, who had just entered the public eye. Quick, quick. With many impatient voices, many reporters came to Yizan's mansion. However, before the reporter came to the mansion, on the 18th, he glanced at Yizan, who had squinted his eyes and seemed to be sleeping, and directly damaged the doorbell and then sealed the door. Then, the rest is pretty simple. Many reporters looked dumbfounded at the mansion in front of them. Have you ever seen a mansion without a door? Also, there is not even a doorbell around. And at the height of the wall, there are many weapons with ornamental properties. After many reporters observed them, they found out that they were bladed. In other words, this weapon can kill. Gudong. Many reporters swallowed their spit blankly, and had a little understanding of the character and background of the owner of Yizan, the mansion. Many reporters looked at each other, not knowing what to do. All reporters knew that Yizan's matter was a big news, but Yizan himself was so dangerous that everyone couldn't start. Go to the police station. I don't know who's a reminder, let everyone suddenly wake up. Yes, with such explosive news, since there is no opportunity here, hurry up and go to the place where you can find the news. Otherwise, other reporters will be preempted. Wouldn't it be a loss to the wife and the army? Ah la la, it looks like my husband is famous. Seeing this, the 18th smiled secretly. On the 18th, I really look forward to Yizan, who has always liked to pretend to be a pig and eat a tiger. What kind of reaction will he have after he loses this great pretending identity? And when Yizan and number 18 did this, Shaolin's eyes widened in surprise as she watched Conan's injury slowly improving. Okay, Shaolin looked at all this in surprise. Could it be Yizan? Shaolin thought about it for a while, but shook her head slightly. Since Yizan said he doesn't agree, then he definitely disagrees. Shaolin looked around strangely, but if it's not Shaolin, then who is it? And Shaolin didn't know. On the other hand, both Yasaka Kudo and Yukiko Kudo looked at each other with murderous intent. I'm getting more and more excited, and my character is starting to become bad, which is not conducive to the planning of the case. Yasaka Kudo said, looking at Yukiko Kudo in front of him. Yukiko Kudo nodded. Then take a break for a while, my mood is starting to feel a little wrong. Yasaka Kudo said worriedly, are you alright? Yukiko Kudo shook his head. I'm fine, but the rest period can't be too long. Although Shinichi's injury has eased a bit, he's still not out of danger. Kudo Yasaka nodded, indicating that he knew. Conan was slowly being treated. And Yizan stared blankly at number 18 in front of him. What did you say? No, 18 covered his mouth and chuckled. It is estimated that my husband will be very famous in the future, in all aspects. 18 helplessly. What did you do? Ah, my husband can't just wrong me. What have I done? Number 18 looked at Yizan pretentiously, pretending not to know what happened. Yizan looked at the appearance of number 18, and a smile cracked at the corner of his mouth. Is that so? Yes. Yizan looked at number 18 feet's serious appearance, roared directly, and rushed towards number 18.